They are anticipating substantial completion of the project around July 18th of 2018. Now, this is preliminary, but this conforms to their contract scope. Because they've been doing additional site work and some additional change order work, I do anticipate some additional days are going to be added to their schedule. But I just thought it was good that they are going to a schedule and organize the site and organize the project according to the schedule. So that's just for you to have for a reference.
Brian?
Yes.
It says September 8th this was done, so that's all pushed back now, isn't it?
It was, they contract this out, so the last update that we received was September 8th, but we just received it last week.
But would that, just trying to deduct, would this all be a month out now? Do you think?
For some items, not all items. They're still trying to do steel erection when they say. So not all items are pushed out, some items are impacted. They're still trying to work to the overall schedule.
It just seems odd that they have post slabs on deck. They don't have the first floor slab on here. I'm assuming that's second floor deck, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's December, but, so he doesn't even show the other one being done.
The slab on grade?
Yeah. I would think that would be a milestone.
Yeah, and he's hoping to do the 2/3 of the slab on grade, he's hoping to do next week. Which would release him to do a lot of the other interior work on the slab, if he can get 2/3 of the slab done next week. The second handout that I gave you is my monthly update on budget. The change order 1 was processed for the police department for a credit of $10,718. So that's the only change order that's been processed for the police department. The MEC, there's been actually 2 change orders processed for the MEC. One was an add and one was a deduct, and it was adding the permit fee and then deducting the permit fee, so it nets out to 0 on the MEC side. So if you look at just the contract summary as of October 17th, you think, wow, we're doing really well.
Yep.
But then you have to go down below where it says change order summary. The change order proposals that are received are 3 through 15. And these have been in our hands for some time. I did review and issued a response back to BC Construction on October 10th, where some of the items were put back on BC Construction for resubmittal, review and resubmittal. Majority of these items are requiring the OPM to verify labor and materials, labor and equipment. And there's one that I'd like to highlight, and it's actually PCO 15. And this is to furnish and install 4 4-inch underslab conduits for the electrical room to the second floor at 13/440/81. I did review that. I did have a recommendation on October 10th that I submitted that I'm recommending to the owner that you approve and authorize that work to proceed. The reason that I want to highlight that one is because it is an under slab condition, and with the wanting to pour the slab next week, I'd like to take care of any under slab conditions, and so that's not going to hamper the schedule BC has for pouring slabs. A lot of the other work that you see has been time and material. Some of this work, most of this work has been completed, but until McGuire signs off on or verifies some of this time and equipment and materials, I'm not yet prepared to recommend them. So So again, PCO 15, if there's any questions on that, I'd recommend that we approve PCO 15 to proceed, so I can give them authorization tomorrow to install it.
There's additional questions on that now, right, with the, whether or not, since that's considered a, what's a primary feeder, whether it needs to be encapsulated in cement.
Talk to Peter on that. Peter would like what he's calling feeders to be encased in concrete. And his interpretation of a feeder is anything carrying power. These conduits would not be carrying power, they'd be carrying communications. So these, at PCO 15, he's confirmed that he does not require concrete encasement of these conduits. But there are some other ones out there that are carrying power that he'd like encased.
That was as of today, this afternoon? Okay.
Yes.
And why is there an extra for these, Brian?
These 4-4-inch conduits were shown on our drawings, but they were shown on the drawings that Griffin is protesting. They were on the technology drawings. So we've taken that scope, and because we need to get it installed now, we've given that scope to BC Construction through a change order. All of the other technology scope, we're not giving to Griffin. We're going to put that into the bid for security. So this is the only piece of that technology that really has to get done now. The rest of it can wait.
The technology?
So this is,
Excluded.
I mean, $13,000 seems like a lot of money to run 4-inch PVC pipes,
The technology's going up.
100 feet.
Excluded all
you
the
know.
technology.
Oh, it is 100 feet.
Yeah.
Which we originally did
It's-
1,000.
We had to have an estimate. as to
Electrical
what it would
room.
cost.
Under slab to, where we were standing, and then it's vertically up into the second floor.
Exclude things and not have an understanding.
So
of
is
what it's gonna
he
cost.
adding in the cost of digging that trench, even though it's dug already, pretty much?
So it's all part of the cost, yes.
So the trench is already there.
They've dug the trench.
He just wants to
They're
get...
anticipating this to happen.
Was there ledge there that had to
No.
be removed?
No. So there's a lot of labor for,
So we're going from the, I'm sorry, sir, from the mechanical room vertical to the second floor, is that what it is? From the electrical room?
Electrical room, under slab, to the center of the building, and then vertically to the second floor communication room.
Yeah, to the 2-hour wall
Yeah.
at column line. I think it's what?
I think it's 3, but
Cost 13,000.
yeah. I guess I'm just asking, you know, I mean, it's probably $1,000 worth of materials, and then the rest of it's excavation and then the labor to put the pipes
Yeah,
together.
they did give us a breakdown, and it's, the labor. The materials, the materials was maybe $1,200 in materials. The rest of it is labor and markup, and I agree, you're always paying more through a change order.
It's phenomenal.
But McGuire's already verified
I haven't.
the
We
labor that it took to dig the trench?
We
and
haven't.
So they have that broken down, that needs to be verified.
And
This wasn't asked to be done on time and materials. This was asked to give us a price to install.
Flat price.
Right.
So it is what it is at this point.
Isn't it am I wrong in assuming that McGuire is supposed to be on site and ensuring that the hours that we're charged for are actually occurring?
and we are doing that, sir. Yeah.
But you're doing it now after the fact.
Well, the previous person that we had on site, we thought that he was doing that. And, yeah.
So there's really no way for you to validate that now, after the fact?
I'm continuing digging for information, and I haven't found anything yet.
So when did they actually do the trenching, Brian? Does it go back a while, or they just did this recently?
The trenching for these 4 conduits has just been done recently.
They want 2955.46 for material, 6227.99 for labor, a burden of 1868.40, overhead and profit of 1658.06 for a total of 1211.07, and then Mike gets a
5%.
5.7%.
5%.
So
was
when was this done, exactly? How long ago?
The only thing that's been done according to PCO 15 is they've outlined the pathway with a trench. They have not supplied any conduits, they've not done any.
So this work for the change order has not occurred, or has occurred?
Only the
All in
trenching.
the trench.
And when was the trenching done?
Well, this isn't being done on time and materials, though,
No.
so.
So it doesn't matter how long it took him, he's
It
saying this is
doesn't
the
matter.
price to do
These other
it.
ones, 3 through 13.
Correct.
We could have that conversation, I think, but.
I think you have to look at 15 as a price to furnish and install.
Okay.
So I guess related to that, though, I don't understand, maybe you can just explain to us. So this was part of the technology,
Yes,
and that was taken out in a
addendum.
addendum.
So Matt and I met with Mike Crester and kind of went through these change orders and, you know, he came down on some of them.
I have it up in my office, but I'm waiting for further review on the architect to see where they go first, but he was able to take off, like on change order 3, he took $5,000 off, because we contested it, we protested it. We truly were under the assumption that we were only gonna be charged for labor, I mean, not labor, just materials only. And this goes from materials, labor, finishing, forming, and it was,
Finishing, everything.
Vapor barrier.
yes.
I thought that was his choice to take out the whole slab and,
Yeah.
instead of trenching.
And it was, and then there's,
But the
so,
addition-
we'll get ugly now. He was directed to by the OPM to take it all out. So he followed directive of that, whether he should have or not, he did.
You challenged him on that, Brian, didn't you?
Matt, you said you were waiting for more information on the architect. You mean OPM? Because I've issued my statement on PCO 3 already.
And what is
But
that?
you're st-
That he did it at his own risk, right? I thought you said.
I can tell you what I,
That's how it was described to
hang on.
us when we had the meeting, that he was,
I can read you from my email, and this is my email of October 10th. To the best of my knowledge, this office never instructed BC Construction to perform any additional work with regards to this change order request. I do acknowledge that removal of the entire existing slab was the contractor's option in lieu of selective slab removal as indicated on the contract documents. I was on site during slab removals and witnessed the cutting and removal of the existing slab. At no time was I informed that any additional scope was being incurred that would result in a change order proposal. You indicate within your PCO that additional work was directed by the OPM. I was not a party to those conversations and can't verify what was conveyed. BC/OPM to provide any additional written documentation to support the claim. Acting in good faith, I can consider a recommendation to the owner to provide costs for materials only. Labor for removal, placement, finishing to be considered contractor's option. Please review and respond. So that's not been responded to.
and he doesn't have any documentation that shows that McGuire
I've not
told
received anything in
him.
the last 7 days. So that's been my position.
Yeah, that's certainly how it was described to us when it first came up. No additional cost.
So essentially, his claim is that the OPM at the time that was on site gave him permission to take that out, or he was looking for it. That's his claim. But there's no documentation or proof that it ever happened.
Nothing's been provided to me, no.
Right, and even if there was, he didn't have the authority to give that authorization. So
Well,
if we chose to, we could say,
Especially at
we
this
didn't tell
cost.
you to do it,
I
so
can
therefore
honestly
we're not
say
paying you.
I've heard Andrew
Yeah, same here.
say it.
Sorry, the thing, no offense.
And also that was discovered that there wasn't vapor barrier installed underneath the concrete, which had been an issue as well. So whether it was approved or not, by the official lines, he was given approval, and I did hear the OPM state it many, many times. And he also discovered site conditions. So,
Saying there wasn't a vapor barrier under the existing slab.
that's my understanding from the contractor. He cut it all up and the vapor barrier wasn't there, and that contractor that installed that lost their license because of that pour. So there were known issues with that, found that slab. Again, he acted on his interest and also from his directive from the OPM. Now we're stuck with the invoice.
Well, I made a request of material only. I think material only was about 8,000 of that of that 33. We'll see what he responds.
Yeah.
But I've directed them to please review and respond, so I haven't. As long as we're moving the issue and responding to these and putting something in writing, we're not holding him up. But I do need, Al, for you to help on a lot of these
And I will.
that I haven't seen anything yet.
So you're asking for approval of 15?
15.
I am.
Yes. So we need a motion for.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's approved.
And the other ones can wait until we receive the documentation and verification. But I would hope that we can resolve these 3 through 13, so BC could put the valid cost down onto their next requisition, because work has been done. We need to come to a resolution as to what's the expense, and then they want to invoice for them. But there's been no invoicing yet for any of these, so none of this is going in a change order proposal, except the one you just approved. The other comment that I made on some of these items 3 through 13 that you may want to consider is I can see how some of these costs can be split between the town of Norfolk and the MEC. And really, I take direction from you. But for instance, PCO7 was removal of ledge at an IP trench, excavation for transformer lines. The power coming into the building, the service entrances coming into the building, anything underground electrical is serving both tenants. So right now, you're seeing the costs as being one cost to the project. But you can direct me if you feel that this is a cost that potentially could be shared. And the same is true for number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11.
Why isn't
All have
it
to
true?
do, and number 13, number 12. These are all,
Why isn't it true for 15? I'm sorry, I didn't read. Is 15 just associated with?
no, 15 is also on the list. You've just approved 15, but it could be a shared cost.
Right.
It's 4 conduits that are going to be shared with police, communications, and primarily this is conduit so you can get fiber to the MEC.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be, I don't see why it's not a shared expense between the 2 tenants.
They didn't want to share any expenses.
I understand, but if I present them with a change order of half the value of 15, I present paperwork to the MEC and I present paperwork to Norfolk. There's your cost. It's not shared anymore. That's your cost, that's your cost. We're not talking about shared. It's an approach.
Then maybe we should change our vote and say only half of it.
Well,
I mean,
well, I'm going to authorize DC Construction to proceed with the installation.
yep.
Now you're going to direct me on how to proceed with the paperwork.
Allocate the cost.
And I can allocate it however you see fit to allocate it, but that conduit is just as much the MEC's conduit as your conduit. So the change order to the MEC is half the value of this change order. It's not shared anymore. They're going to pay for 2 conduits, you're going to pay for 2
Should we
conduits.
get their approval? for 2 conduits before we approve?
I think, I'll take direction from
I
this
mean, are we, we're
committee.
gonna hold up the slab at this point?
No, we're gonna give BC Construction authorization to install. This is just a paperwork issue.
We just approved it before he
Right.
mentioned the idea of splitting the cost. If we can split it, then all the better.
Yeah.
That might take anyway.
So no, I'm not gonna say to BC Construction tomorrow, you have approval for 2 of the 4 conduits,
No,
and I have to get MEC approval for the other 2. No, I'm saying install the 4, and I'll split the paperwork.
yeah.
But on your directive to them on all these change orders, you said for them to resubmit all their invoices and do 50/50.
I'll have Dina do that for me. I'll have Dina tomorrow, if this is your direction, that you want to invoice 50% of this to the Met, I'll have Dina split the PCO 15 and give me paperwork, split it in half.
So it's going to be an education process with the MEC, because,
Right.
I mean, they're looking at this as they're a tenant in a building
That's my question.
that's kind of finished. I mean, obviously the fiber, and I'm not, I'm just
Yeah.
having a discussion here, but, clearly the fiber is separate than us. But a lot of these other things are, they're looking to move into the second story of a building that we've prepared for them.
And I think that's a fair question, Jack. I mean, I'd love to have them take the entire bill, don't misunderstand, but there is an element of fairness here. And I'm assuming that the majority of these, we would have to do if we were the only tenant. Some of these may be specific to Metacomet, and that is clear-cut, and I don't think there's an issue there, but most of these, we'd have to do anyway, if we were the only tenant in the building.
Yes.
And I guess I'd have to look to you, Jack, but I do think there is an element of fairness to this. If it's something we'd have to do anyway, regardless of whether Metacomet was there or not, I would question whether we really have a right to charge them back on
I
that.
could see on 10, but I don't see
Well,
any other
PCO
ones.
10, for instance, excavation of a generator conduit trench.
Right.
Well,
That one we can argue.
That one I could argue too,
Yeah.
but some of these,
Number
we're
8,
just,
I think.
I just,
So, yeah, and I said, it's up to you to look at some of these, but we have more conduits in the ground out there than you just need for you.
well, then you should, I think you can guide us on that. If there are change orders where there's a specific component of that is specifically for them, I think that, as long as we can say this with a straight face, then that's by all means, we should do that. But what I don't think is fair, just my opinion, is that because we're doing a change and it impacts both components and we'd have to do it anyway for us, pushing 50% of that cost onto them, I think that's a little unfair. So I'm just applying a fairness component to
The ones
this.
that I've bought, the ones that I've recommended have a component of that change order that is either bringing conduits in, service in, or power in to service the MEC. And Norfolk Police. It's a shared component that you're both gaining
So
a use.
So then you would what would you say then? Are you saying 8, 9, 10, and 11?
The ones that I had were,
But you also said 12, didn't you?
I said 7.
7, said 7 through 13.
You said 7 through 13.
15.
7, let me do it again. 7, 8, 9,
Yeah.
10, 11, and 15.
Which they already approved.
Okay, so you've taken 12 and 13 out of there?
Yes.
Because the Sally Ports would be hard pressed to,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, and I took out 3, and I took out 4, and I took out 5.
Actually, wouldn't you say that excavation for the generator conduit, no, the number 9, wouldn't that all be Metacomets? I mean, all that power is going up there for their portion of it, it's not for our portion.
9, I do have, recommend 50% be processed as change order to the MEC. If you say, what, 100%?
Yeah, I mean, the power's not going for us, it's going for them alone.
Yep. For 9?
Yeah,
That applies to which conduit?
No, that's concrete encasement. the only reason we have to concrete encase it is critical operation power systems, and all the critical operation power systems are on the second floor. It's not in the police department.
So you feel that we're justified in sharing 7 through 11, with 9 being all met,
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Plus
Okay.
15.
And then 15.
And then
50.
15.
and then 15, yeah.
Do you think the site work for the transformer pad's necessary or fair?
Yeah, I think you're,
They had to put a transformer there one way or the other.
I do.
Okay.
I mean, I bring it up as a conversation. If you say no,
Yeah.
then no. I mean, it's,
We had to have power in a building, so
they both have power.
we're gonna go with the fairness.
Okay.
So you'll write the paperwork up, what we just discussed then?
Yes, I still need to find out what's the appropriate number, though.
Right.
But once we determine an appropriate number,
Yeah,
we can split the paperwork.
all right.
Another item that's come up is the security integrated technology systems specification that we are preparing. We've had a lot of conversations about this, a lot of different ideas and concepts that we're contemplating. And the last time we met, it was concluded that we were going to put specifications together and go out to bid and prepare a bid and get numbers from security contractors. We did, just prior to our last meeting, we submitted a draft spec to the town for review, and Mike Yang took time to review it and made some suggestions. We then coordinated a conference call with Mike Yang to go over his comments within our spec. And it became clear in the conversation that Mike was only wanting to entertain installations from one operating system. And this created for us another conflict in being able to bid this. He stated that the town right now is working off a system, operating system called the Vigilon, and you have it in your schools, and you have it in other buildings in town. Matt, you probably know where it is. But the Vigilon system is an operating system. Mike's point to me was, well, it's not proprietary because there are many Vigilon dealers out there and we can get multiple bids from different Vigilon installers. But that's still technically a proprietary spec if you're saying we're only going to entertain the Vigilon dealers. It's like saying I'm going to specify a Ford, and I can only get numbers from Ford dealerships. Well, it's proprietary to Ford.
Or it's like saying Mitsubishi, and only getting dealers from Mitsubishi.
From Mitsubishi.
Yeah,
So
right.
the spec that we had put together had listed at least 3 operating systems. And like the Mitsubishi, you may get substitutions. So you can't say it's a Vigilon or equal. Well, according to Mike, he doesn't want an equal. And this is a public safety issue for the town that he was going to go back to talk to you, Jack, and Matt, and give me more direction as to what you feel is the appropriate way to go about this.
Well, I think you talked to Matt, and then, so we talked about, my understanding is there's a process that the selectmen could take a vote to make a declaration that we need to have this proprietary system. As long as it's defendable.
Well, I think it could be defendable on just the purpose of public safety. If you feel it's a public safety issue within the town, then I think you have a justifiable reason to do it. Then we could prepare a spec that says a Vigilon, no substitution, and then we would have a supporting document from the town that says, here's our vote, and it's been authorized to do this. But that, again, takes some time, and if that's the approach you want to go, then we can hold off on this again and insert that language.
What do we hold up if it takes a little time?
It's a good question. It depends who you talk to. You go out on the site and talk to the contractor, he needs this information, he wants to know who it is. In my opinion, there's no reason that this is holding up him in any way, because we've since talked to Griffin Electric about the scope that they are installing, and they're installing all the back boxes, conduits, pull strings for all of this equipment. They acknowledge that it's in their spec, it's in their scope, and it's part of their work. So, the first time this contractor will have to show up on site is to start pulling wires. It's whenever the building is prepared to pull wires for telephone, data, and security systems. And this is toward when construction is nearing completion. It's before the ceiling tiles go in, but it's when your ceilings are still opened up, but your walls are in. There could be painting going on even.
So that's many months away.
If you're looking at the schedule that I passed out earlier, that's going to be next late spring.
So why is he feeling otherwise? I mean, what you say to me is logical. Why would he feel that
He's feeling that there's another coordination component that he needs to get in front of. I try to reassure him that the coordination component's already been done, and the location and the devices are already determined. The hardware has already been specified, and the hardware is already in in BC Construction's contract. So the coordination that he feels he needs to do, I'm telling him, it's been completed. In my opinion, there's nothing that's urgent about this going out, other than the town might want to know how much you need to spend. That's the pricing component that you probably want to know about. But if I had a contractor today who's assigned to this scope, they would be submitting shop submittals to us, but they would not be looking to do any on-site installations until springtime anyway.
How about like placement of cameras, exterior cameras, that's all laid out for the exact elevation, these general locations, I thought.
But we always coordinate exact.
Okay,
They're
but-
shown on the drawings, they're shown like,
But they want to run the conduits, so how do they know where to end the conduits if they don't have,
they would ask us that question in construction, and we would direct them to where to place
but if
it.
there's not, every camera's going to have a different focal viewpoint, it's not just put it 10 feet off the ground, it needs to be,
We have them on the elevations where they are at the tops of walls, exterior locations. We're showing them on our drawings.
was that designed with the security contractor in place, or they're just a random arbitrary elevation?
They're random, but what this spec does is it tells you the camera that goes at that location. It tells you the megapixels for an exterior camera versus the megapixels for
Would
an
we have a
interior.
better product if we got the contractor's opinion on where it goes, so they could give us the optimal elevations for, I mean, if I say 12 feet, and what we're specking out, it's not ideal at 12 feet, but what we have it there, so it's not holding up the job, yes, but are we gonna sacrifice performance?
No, you're still gonna have a good megapixel exterior camera at the top of your wall. So if you wanted to say to me now, let's lower the camera and get it from this angle, we can always change that location. You still own a back box and a conduit. You just have to get me that information.
We don't
sooner.
have the information to give you, and if he starts putting up the walls, and they start putting up the conduit, and they start putting the rest of the building in place,
Most of your interior cameras are gonna be ceiling mounted.
I'm worried about the,
Yeah, patience. Chuck, I mean, you did all the cameras at the school. Matt, I'm not trying to dismiss.
I just,
Your
I
concerns,
think
but-
there's this valid point that this would make it a lot smoother if we knew the direction the contractor was going, if we had a contractor there to help aid in the instruction, because then you're not trying to figure it out after the fact, that's all I'm
So if
saying.
we get the proprietary vote done at the next selectmen's meeting, we'll move forward.
What's the downside if we don't go with Vigilant?
You'd have two systems, such as, they'd still operate and show you a camera, but it's like running Windows-based next to Apple-based. They don't really, each one of these security systems really operates on its own language.
So I assume at dispatch, you can see all the buildings from their desk.
That would be optimal, yeah.
Can you
With
today?
one, with one system.
Right.
Right.
Can you see the school today?
Yes. Today you
In
can.
some place.
You have to, could. You have to log out, but you have to start fooling around with different, we have it so you can pull it up.
It's not like right on the screen for us to
No,
look
but
at.
they have to VPN in
Yeah.
and then pull it up, and then they have to close that VPN to go into another.
What we see is our station, you know, that, we have a bunch of cameras around the station right now. And it was designed, I don't know, a while ago, so.
Why don't we take this offline and
Yeah, I was going to say, can we, I mean,
back in 2 weeks?
can we, I'm not saying that this is an important discussion, but I think there are discussions that are more imminent.
Right.
And if we have time to deal with that, I mean, we should know it and note it, but I,
Yeah, look,
this becomes very disjointed to me if we don't stay a little bit more focused on what is more imminent and then work our way through progressively to what we need to deal with. Just, just my thoughts. It's just based on yesterday and the 2 o'clock meeting today,
also with this,
it's hard to tell which river, never mind what direction it's going.
well, we're trying to get direction from the town on this to get a to get a spec that works for you. We've always been trying to do that, so there's been a new directive now with this in the last couple weeks. So the other directive that we're hearing that we'll have to coordinate is, Mike was interested in having this spec out the telephone system and computers and everything else that goes with the data and telephone network, so I think my email, and we can follow up with that, but I don't know if we need to take time here, but that's, again, something we have to determine whether that's in-house or out-of-house.
Yeah, I mean, there was some discussion about whether or not, and I only, been catching up on emails the last couple of days, but there was discussion about whether or not telephone system is outside the scope of the project. Is that oversimplifying?
It's outside the scope of our contract. It's a soft cost line item for telephone and data systems.
I know when we set up the phone systems in the rest of the town buildings, it was a process going through all that, trying to get everybody's name in there and their, just all the information for every person in every location. So it's not a small job. So I think it's considered, should be part of the job that we should, you know, put out to, put it in that bid package, because just we're gonna do it, or, you know, the future IT guy is gonna have the time to do it, or the ability to do it. I don't know. Unknown.
Just considered like FF&E, pretty much? It's just a
Correct.
$200,000 data and technology, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it's whether you're rolling that into our scope or whether you're going to keep it outside our scope.
Will there be an additional design fee?
If you want us to take it on, yes. If you want us to give us the information so we can put it in the spec, no.
But if we can't,
If you can produce the information, say, this is what I want you to spec for a telephone system, and I just take that information and put it in that spec, then I won't charge you. But if you say to me, it's up to me to design the telephone system and spec a telephone system and research a telephone system, and then everything that Bob said, responsible for the oversight of the installation. Now I have another contractor to oversee for that scope. That is additional.
Short telephone. So if we just tell you, we want short telephones throughout, and that's match up to their existing,
So some communities have a remote telephone system in another building that you just connect through fiber, and you
that's what
say
we
you
have.
can run it off of
we
this
have
phone
now.
system.
We run it,
That's what we have now.
Yeah, so that's, you don't even need a phone system at the PD. That could be your answer, but I don't know your IT side enough to know if that's possible.
All fiber optics are all tied together.
Yeah,
You use one internet service and then one telephone service, and it's all interconnected.
you could run your PD from here on your telephone side and on your IT side, but
We don't have emergency backup here, which is a problem, which we've already lost it, and the reason they haven't been affected is because they have the copper lines. So then they're getting rid of copper.
So if we move the head end up to the police station,
I think that was what Mike wanted to do.
yeah, move the head end and then fiber it back to here.
right,
See, that's where we either were involved in that or we're just directed and the town directs us.
but in order to spend the money out of this account, out of this construction project, don't we have to do it through?
No.
No, it's like an FF&E.
He just worked up that budget based on what we have appropriated.
So we could call a Shortel contractor and say, this is what we want you to do.
That's what most communities do.
So just order a couple, whatever the server, whatever the switches.
Well, we'd have to take what we have existing and move it up there.
Well, the head, you're right, the head end and all that stuff. But we probably have to get another switch because we're gonna add another building. It's
But
easy.
it-
Sue can do it in the
It's all part of
afternoon. I'm pretty
There
sure.
you go.
But it is okay for
Really
you
good at
to
the
get your
telephone.
own contractor. And then that contractor has that budget to work with, and your contractor works with you and does that, just
Right,
like
as
an
long as
FF&E
it's
contractor.
Procure it appropriately, that's.
Well, that would be at goods and services, I would imagine, because it's just plugging in telephones and programming, and that would be under the threshold that we'd be fine with. But, like,
Nice job, man. Brought some good news to us.
Well done.
I know there's been some angst about the construction process and the work that's been done. I'd like to kind of summarize that, yes, we're spending money on the utility side of the building, on the underground side of the building, and that's a necessary cost to get done. Once that gets done and backfilled,
We never have to see it again.
it's done, and now BC Construction comes back to base contract scope with the building. Because as far as I'm
So you're saying you
concerned,
missed those drawings, and that's why we're having so much confusion?
no, not at all. Edit the tape.
That's kind of what
Jimmy
No,
Hoffa?
but the site work, the remaining site work that has to be done out there, again, is not a time-sensitive issue. And I don't want Mike to make you feel that the rest of the site work is a time-sensitive issue. It doesn't need to be. I think the town needs to determine how you want to go about putting the rest of the site work in place. And that's going to be a spring job to whoever does it. Whether it's BC Construction or the town or anybody, it's going to be a spring project. And I know you've probably spent time on it, but I'd also offer you, if you'd like me to bid the site work out again. You have the drawings, you have the design, you have the specifications. We could bid it and receive bids for contractors to start site work in the spring. And I'll make that offer at no cost to the town if you want me to get involved that way. So I just put that on the table. It's going to be a spring site work package for whomever.
problem is budget.
I'm struggling to find a reason why not to do that.
That's what I offer.
After we left the last meeting, part of the action items was to sit down with Bob McGee and talk about, did that happen? And is the answer they can't do any or much of the site work that has to be done, or?
Well, again, they still don't, part of the flaw in the original plan was that, we talked about having the DPW do work, and then we realized that DPW can't do it unless we start paying prevailing wage. So we've talked about other opportunities, which was to hire a temporary employee which we've explored, we've actually found somebody who could do it. We hire them, pay for them out of the project. That's a possibility. And then the other option is to go out to, I guess we'd have to go out to bid and hire another contractor, similar to what Brian is saying. But I don't think that, not only is not just paying prevailing wage unappealing just from the face value, but when you start adding, you got union people involved, and when you offer it to one person, you have to then offer it to, everybody else in the force. It just becomes unmanaged, impossible. So that's kind of the reason we can't do it with that staff.
Well, we have gotten a price from Mike for the site work, and he is breaking it down in terms of exactly what items cost what, or what processes cost what. We've gotten a number of 900 and change from him, and he's going to break that down, and there may be some components of that we can pull out of the process. But if most of this, if not all of this, isn't going to get it done until the spring, why would we not take advantage of an opportunity to just see what someone else says?
Right.
I mean, what, you don't have to hire anybody.
Doesn't
I
cost
mean,
anything. Right, doesn't cost us anything.
yeah, so I mean, I'm just struggling, why would we not do that?
Well, Matt's saying some of this work at least needs to be done before the winter.
Some of it needs to be done so they can operate machinery. Because we want to blast. It makes no sense to piecemeal the blasting. So if we're going to do that, we need to know what we're dealing with. So a lot of the site work that I've pointed out, I feel that need to be done now. And there's still plenty of season left. The access road, we just want to see what's up there. Does it need to be done now? No, but we kind of need to know what we're dealing with for ledge up there. The foundation for the tower, I prefer to do that before we're doing it on the building. We have to put a 5,000 gallon tank in there underground, which is a large space. The septic tank, the sewage ejector, it's didn't know what to call it, a module, it's a containment. There's going to be a fire hydrant going in. There's stormwater infrastructure. I have a question for that as well. But there's potential, like, we should explore, see what we're dealing with, so we know what we're dealing with, because we have no known, it's all unknown. And this is where the heartburn comes from, is because even if we get a bid price, that's not going to include blasting, which that site work could be massive money on top of that for blasting.
So the driver for this list that you have on the back of your sheet is more to see what we have for ledge than necessarily having to have
Well,
those
on the stuff that
utilities.
before winter, no, that needs to be done, so they can pour their slab.
A through F is all being done on the street side of the building.
Time and material.
It's all on T&M right now.
A through F is taken care of on time and materials.
But F, they don't know, they don't have direction, because they don't have it, which it could be.
But F is their responsibility, though.
It is, but it's holding up the pad.
For the HVAC.
So, but this is site work that must be accomplished before winter, so they can put up their siding.
Yeah.
Is A through F going to get done under the base
A through F is
contract
gonna get
before the
done.
winter?
Yes.
Not E, though.
Brian, is
Well,
F on
partially.
on the plans
No,
to be, I didn't think it was.
there's not a drawing for how they're running it
HVAC
in.
lines?
Yeah, being underground.
Yes. The excavation in the back building was always going to be an owner-provided item. But the lines from the building to the condensing pads are contract scope.
G was done today.
Yes.
Well, some of these things, for example, the footing, I mean, the location of the tank may in fact change based on whether it's a 16 or a 24 footing for the tower, and we won't know that until after we pick a tower.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, but actually, I'm saying it's okay. I mean, we heard that today at 2 o'clock. So, what, Matt, what would we need to do that we can't do, that couldn't wait until he bids out some alternative considerations?
I feel the entire A through K.
The footing for the staircase is a
But A
GC.
through F are being done.
A through E are being done. There's no decision on how to do F. We're still waiting on F, and it was said today that it could take more time.
Footing for the staircase is a different issue as well.
That's an interior footing.
Correct.
But that's still.
That's
Tire pad to be put, yes,
we
they
need
have
the
to be
pad,
done,
though.
but they're not.
We need to get the pad installed so they can set up their equipment, so they can put the steel up, and because this pad's not there, they can't set up their equipment to put steel up, which they can't put the siding up. So it all is a package.
I understand that, but I guess
It's all being done.
yeah, I guess what in here is not already in the queue at some point in time to get done?
Well,
Versus what he would take outside of that process and bid independently for us.
Everything else is not on this list.
I mean, I'm not arguing that this
No,
all has to
I-
be done, but it's in the queue to be done.
Yeah.
So what additional work?
Oh, it'd be all the curbing, paving.
But that's all
but
spring
that's-
work.
But that's stuff I put on site work that needs to be done, because, and that's not the list that needs to be done immediately. This is site work that just needs to be done.
That's not my question. My question is, why would
But
it not,
that's-
why is it not viable for him to put together that list of things that need to be
I'm
done in
not-
spring to bid that? That's
But
the only question I
I'm not
asked.
disagreeing that. I'm saying on this list is the stuff that I feel that needs to be done before
Different
winter.
conversation. I'm just asking why would we not do that? That's the question. Why would we not do that?
Because we're over budget. That's the only
He's
thing.
not charging us for it.
You don't have to award the bid.
Yeah.
We don't have to award the bid. What is the downside of exploring an alternative vendor to do the work when we've already gotten a price from our existing vendor? What is the downside if we're not incurring any additional
Just the
costs?
spring work, so it's
The spring work, right?
Just for spring
Right,
work,
spring
and
work,
you've got to imagine
which
it's
is
going to come in
what
less than 900.
We started this conversation with.
Does
I'm not
900
arguing any of this.
include
Just-
some of these
what's
other
the
items
downside?
that aren't in his base contract?
I'm just trying,
or is it just-
piece at a time here.
Yeah, chunk it up.
He's including,
No, because he's
He is
he's
breaking
given
it
us a
up.
list, yeah.
no, I'm not against bidding it out. I'm just thinking we should finish doing all this stuff for winter.
Just one question at a time, please. So why would, does anyone see, is it, am I missing something? Why would we not take advantage of that?
Well, I mean, every job that we do right now is costing us probably 2 or 3 times what it would cost if we had a guy working for us and just doing it on a daily basis.
I understand, but
So,
go-
so when we were talking about doing the blasting and figuring out whether or not we need to do blasting on the roadway, if we had to do blasting on anything else, the only thing that's pertinent right now is getting the water line in. But like Matt said, you've still got a hydrant out front that's got to get done, which can get done in the spring. It's just when you leave everything to the last minute, you've got everybody in there, and everybody's trying to work around it, and it's just going to be a zoo trying to work there.
let me try my question again, because I think I'm not framing it correctly or what. There are specific things that need to get done in the spring, no matter what. Curbing, paving, whatever it might be, there are certain things that are included in what Mike is proposing at $900 and some odd thousand. And what you're suggesting is that we identify what those are. You guys nod up and down saying, yes, those are the things that will definitely need to get done in the spring. You will package them into a bid. He will bid that out, and we'll see if we can get a price for that, because Mike's going to give us a breakdown on what he's going to charge for that. We don't have to accept it. You're not going to charge us for it. We don't have to agree to it. We don't do any of that. But it'll give us some comparison as to whether or not we do it with our guy, or whether we do it with your guy, or whether we do it with Mike. I mean, I'm just struggling why that is such a hard decision.
Well, you're just losing time right now to actually start that work if you hired someone right now. And a lot of that could be done before winter. If we wait until the spring, and everything, is happening in the spring, he's planning on doing the roof in the spring, he's planning on doing all the finishes in the spring, finishing it out in the spring. You're gonna have a lot of guys there. I mean,
Why don't we take whatever list Mike provides us through BC Construction? If there's pricing in there that you find is favorable, go ahead, give it to him. But there'll be objects in there that you're gonna find that looks a little high.
he's not breaking it out price
Well,
by price.
he's gonna break out.
But how do we know
components.
if that's the case? How do we know
You have
whether
a
we should keep it
choice,
or not?
though. Again, you have a choice. Here's the number. Take it or leave it. And all I'm saying is, I can get going on giving you alternate prices through a bid process that you can then compare well, this is the price Mike wanted, but here's a bid situation. And I can have the bidder break it down into any components you want. We put it in the bid documents. What's your price for paving?
He's giving you an educated choice.
Right.
No,
And I think I'm agreeing with Jim,
Yeah.
that there's really no reason you wouldn't go out and ask them if he's doing it for free and, or, whatever. He's doing it so that it's not a major expense to us. And we're gonna find out at some point that the guy that we put out to bid might do some of these jobs cheaper, some of these jobs more expensive. Maybe Mike's prices would be good. And if we hired somebody on in the meantime to do some of these smaller jobs that we absolutely gotta have done before winter, then that's what we do.
And that's the
It
price you
doesn't make
pay.
any sense to me why we wouldn't,
No,
But
I think it's-
the alternative is, that we've hinted at a little bit, is to hire somebody,
do it
hire
all.
a temporary employee who's got an excavator, and bring them in and do some of this stuff, do the critical stuff now, but then also when there's dead time, to go do the non-critical stuff, so that they're getting some of the stuff done in the spring. Now, I know there's a risk to that, so then now we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, and we got a temporary employee, maybe, we get a guy who can run an excavator and a laborer. There's a risk to that, but we might, the reward is we also might be able to get it done cheaper.
not paying a for-profit company. We're trying to do it without paying profit. And that's the only true reason why, because all this is above and beyond. So we have a $500,000 contingency for two buildings.
Right.
We're already gone through almost the entire, by the time these change orders, that'll eat the $300,000 up.
Well, he's part of the problem. I'm wondering why we have 3 through 15 change orders already.
Because they are all excluded from the bid.
Just barely started.
Also, a lot of it's site-related, and that was the original agreement, so.
But, so now we have no money for site work. So now we go out, he wants basically $1 million, say, so that we're already over budget $1 million then. That's why we're trying to come up with a solution to save money.
Well, we all know we're not going to spend $1 million. We know that, because we don't have it. So that said, we're trying to compartmentalize this in a way that we can reduce our costs. And all I'm suggesting is doesn't it make sense to look at all of the viable options? You have a viable option. You guys have a viable option. But there may be alternatives to that, and we're being given an opportunity to at least evaluate that. I'm struggling as to why that's bad. We may say no. Mike said it earlier, you don't have to agree to any of this. Just smile, say thank you very much, we're not going to do it. It just makes sense to me to have more than one. You really don't know what it's going to cost to bring in an employee. You have an estimate, a guesstimate, but you're relying on one person and a helper, but one person to perform some rather extensive functions in a project.
There's
With
numerous
no backup,
projects.
with no backup. What happens if he gets hurt? What happens if he, something happens, he gets sick, he's ill for 6 months? There's no backup, there's no support system to that strategy. It's a one and done.
How long would that take to get someone on board if in fact you can or decide to go that route? I mean, soon enough to get some of this stuff done before the winter?
Next week.
Next week.
Yes.
You can get someone on, so why not, if you can go that route, and it seems to make sense, let him do it, and then
Let's
you
still do
you
this.
still go and bid whatever's
Yeah, I have a
left, whatever he
problem with
doesn't get to. You set up the bid form so you have all the items, and you can give him some of them and not others if they either get done, or it turns out the BCC's numbers are cheaper.
Exactly.
then
I'm
you-
not trying
I'm
to.
not ruling out one option
I'm
or
not trying to
another.
shoot a hole in anybody's plan. I'm just saying, here's an option for you, that's all.
Makes sense.
Get back to me if you want to decide otherwise. If you had another plan in place,
It
great.
may end up being a combination of all three that gets some of the work done in order to get everything done for the cheapest price.
I'm all for having a contractor who has a scope of work, because we're trying to run this off. It'd be much easier, so I'm all to do that. I'm just trying to keep this project as reined into the budget as possible, and that's the only intent, because all it is more openings for loose ends and stuff, which is not as good as having it. But we're just trying to come up with ways to save money.
Yeah, I'm not
And that's a
criticizing, I
good
think it's a
thing.
great
Yeah.
idea, and
That's a good thing.
makes
I mean-
sense, and if we can get some of the work done through that avenue, then so be it, and maybe maybe he can get everything done, and that's the cheapest route to go, and we don't end up
You
awarding.
just let me know.
Yeah,
Let
no
me
one
know.
has suggested this isn't a good idea.
Oh, no,
Okay,
Let me know.
I'm just saying we need multiple options. And if you need to, if you guys think collectively there are things that need to get done in the next 30 days, and you can find a way to get that done, get them done. You know, get them done, and then what's left over, we send out and see what we're gonna need to do in the spring.
Well,
It's just an option.
I mean, ideally, if you're gonna hire somebody, you're gonna hire them until they can't work anymore because of the weather gets too bad. You know, so ideally, you're gonna get him in there, and he's just gonna work there every day, and he's gonna work on every piece of that project and complete each one of them. But, you know, this isn't like, you know, I was talking to Brian earlier, I mean, the project across the street, there was one excavator there and one laborer who did that entire project. And that building's, you know, 3 times the size of this project. You know, you have a subdivision in town here that does, you know, some big houses and a lot of infrastructure. It was done by one excavator, one guy and with a laborer. You know, it's not unheard of to do it this way. I mean, that's,
Yes, it is. Welcome to public construction. Welcome to
I've been-
public
I've
construction.
been involved with 3 big projects in this town. I understand that. But, you know, we're trying to find an alternative to spending $1 million,
I understand.
which is where we're at right now. Because based on the extras that we've already paid out and the price that we've already received, we're gonna be paying $1 million for our
Yeah.
So,
excavation.
Bob, are you saying that it's an all or nothing deal, in your view?
No,
You know, well, but let me just, is that what you're saying? Because I'm still struggling as to why what we just suggested is a bad idea. Are you not agreeing with it, or are you saying that if we, that the only real viable alternative in your eyes is to hire this individual and have him do all the work?
When you put it out to bid, you're gonna find the lowest price. It still doesn't mean that it's gonna be lower than if your own employees go out there and do the work. Because on every project, and it's gonna take him probably, 2 months to get out to bid and get the bids back and make a decision?
No, not, well, to get the bids back, yes.
Yeah. So that's gonna put us into December.
But we're talking about,
Spring work, and
Spring
maybe
work.
I'm puzzled as to why we spent 30 minutes on this. Why, I mean, are there things that will get done in the spring no matter what? Site work?
Yeah.
Clearly there are.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we just see what the price would be to get that done? And then if we don't like it, we throw it in the wastebasket.
Well, let me try. So I know communication's not going well outwards, and it's not going well this way either, I think, either. So we're all trying.
We need to put another conduit in to see if we can get the flow a little quicker.
I think.
Would it be a 4-inch pipe or a 3-inch pipe?
Yeah. Yeah. Never mind. I think I like Brian's idea, and of course, I want to get more information in. The problem is, I can't wait, like you said, I think you agreed, 2 months to get, to get bids back and to start making a decision. So why don't we, as I think Mike said, why don't we try and do all 3? I mean, if everybody's okay with it, why don't we go ahead and hire, get the guy on board?
I don't think anybody
and
said
we'll start
not to do
whittling
that.
away. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we'll start whittling away and make progress.
Yeah.
And
That's fine. In the meantime, identify what is clearly spring work, see what they say.
thank you. I
It's
know you're
just,
thinking.
it just doesn't
The
seem
pipe
that
went all
complicated.
right over to Jim, and now it didn't.
George, going back your way now.
Man, just say
It was 4 inches coming my way, it's 3 inches going back to you.
two things.
Maybe we move on to the next topic.
Hang on, I just want 2 things, and then I'll stop. Now I lost one of them.
Promise?
2 things. The contract that's available right now might not be available if we don't give him, he's looking for some employment, so we have the perfect opportunity right now. So we say we're just gonna limit it for a month. I don't know if that deal's still gonna be available, so just putting that out there.
We'll try.
But also, when you're given homework, you don't wait till the last minute to accomplish it. That's what happens, and it becomes not as good. We have the time, we should be using our time to do this. We're gonna try to jam everything in. Right now, it would be great to continue, like, we could do the site work that's needed. We have plenty of time to do the side of the driveway, all the elevation over there, all the site work over there, probably before the winter time, so that's done. But if we put it out to bid soon, where do we stop the person? Because we don't know. Because we don't know when he's gonna get a hard frost, so we can't go in. So that's where I'm,
if you can get someone on board next week, you get them on board next week, and you have them start doing the work.
Yeah.
And what I think
But-
Jim has said, you were just talking about the work that would be done in the
Right.
spring, not before the winter.
He's not gonna be paving.
but Where do you exclude it? Where do we know when to say we're gonna stop it now?
You let him keep going if you can get more stuff done before the winter.
If it's
So
going well, we'll just keep going.
the bid package can be broken up into 10 different
And
items, and you bid it, and if 3 of those items were already accomplished by the guy you hire, then you don't award on the basis of those 3 items. You give him the other work if it works out to be cheaper. So you don't have to draw a
I
hard
understand.
line between what one guy's going to do and what the other guy's going to do.
Moving on.
Moving on, George.
Yes.
We're in dead horse
I added a
territory.
second sheet to the budget, and the second sheet was an application for payment for BC Construction. It's application number 4. I reviewed this and I recommend payment. I do have the original signed. Copies.
Didn't we authorize you to sign those, Jack? Or do they need to be signed by the full committee?
I think you authorized me.
Yeah,
just voted on the paper.
yeah, we just have to
And
authorize
you,
to
and you
pay
see
for
that
it.
the application 4 in the lower left box, there's a change order summary to date, and those change order summary matches up with the information I gave you. You're running on a $10,718 credit right now on their contract amount. So there's none of these PCOs that we talked about are within this invoice. So, I guess the last thing I have is the HVAC system.
Well, why don't we take care
You
of
need a
this
motion to
first?
approve this.
Yeah, to approve that, what is it, $101,531.62?
That's it.
Okay, we need a motion to approve that. Payment to BC Construction for that.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All is in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
That's
Jack
the
and
quickest
sign
thing
it.
we've gotten done all day.
Yeah.
It didn't take long, did it?
I mean, there's no place, do you want me to sign the
There's no
bottom?
alternative to say no.
There's no place for me to sign it, really.
Yeah, you just have to give it for payment. HVAC system. I know we've had discussions on the HVAC system. Where that stands right now is the mechanical contractor has submitted a system, a VRF system manufactured by Carrier. There were 4 bidders at the time of bid that were pricing this project. One was Carrier, one was LG, one was Dakin, and the 4th being Mitsubishi. The information that we get from the mechanical contractor is that Carrier, LG, and Dakin were all very close in their numbers at the time of bid. So they've compared the systems. They felt that Carrier was the closest system to the Mitsubishi system, and they've arranged with Carrier to put the submittal package together. Now, what happens with all of these submittals is we get them, our engineers review them because they're the one that specified them, and we then issue comments on whether it's an approved submittal or not approved submittal. We returned comments to VC Construction on October 6th, where we told the contractor to revise and resubmit based on a whole list of comments, where we were finding that the submittal was not equal to the Mitsubishi system. So in that regard, subcontractor gives it back to Carrier, and that's now in Carrier's hands to resubmit based on the comments that they have. We're anticipating a resubmittal on the Carrier system. If they can address the comments and it's suitable to the engineers as an equal, we are then prepared to approve this as an equal. And that's one path that we're looking to take, is potentially approving a Carrier installation. We have talked with the mechanical contractor and asked him for a price or what the Mitsubishi system would cost, because you as the owner have the option to say, even though you've determined an equal, we could still reject it if you want to pay the difference to get to the specified product. Now, you might question, why do we have to pay to get to a specified product? Well, contractors, manufacturers can't just hold a number and hold you hostage to a number, and can't hold a subcontractor hostage to a number. And within public bidding, we have to provide competition. Just goes back to the same conversation we had on security systems. This is not a sole source project to Mitsubishi. So we're waiting to hear back, and the contractor has agreed to go back to Mitsubishi, find out what their offer is to supply the system. At the time of bid, the differential in the pricing was $100,000. So it was not a small number. But that might not be today's number. That was the number at time of bid. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we stand. There is no, right now, there is no approved submittal for installation. But we know that the contractor is pushing the mechanical contractor to get a submission that's approved, because that does impact trenching and underground lines and things that they want to get going on. So they need to proceed on their schedule, and the only way to proceed is to get a submittal that we find is acceptable. We're not there yet, but I just wanted to give you an update on where it's going. So if there's any more information you need from me, let me know. We probably will, if we receive it, the next submission from Carrier, it goes back to RDK, who are the engineers. They will review it again. I can't tell you what their response would be because we haven't seen the submittal. So.
And in general, the comments on the first submittal on the Carrier system were
Well,
comments that could be addressed and overcome, and they don't
Mechanical
basically...
contractor has put this back in Carrier's hands, and Carrier, and his comment to me was Carrier feels that they can accommodate these requests. But they are lengthy. I read them and you think, wow, they're not even close, but it may mean that new equipment gets submitted, or they make alterations to meet these comments.
One of the things that came up earlier was that because of that choice of system there, we're going to have to upgrade the electrical panel. Is that right?
It seems like there could be a breaker size upgrade.
So the concern that I think Bob or Mike or Matt raised was that that could be a long-term cost to us because it means it's using more energy. And that just, so I assume when they're looking at the comparing what you spec'd, which was the Mitsubishi running at a certain efficiency, there is some analysis comparing that to the Carrier system, I would assume.
When we get a resubmittal, I'll have RDK look at that
Okay.
closely to see what the different amp ratings are on the two systems
while they're running, right?
while they're running, yes.
So is that enough,
Yes.
is that enough to reject it, though?
If that is the only issue, no.
It has to be more than one issue?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it doesn't have to be more than, it depends on what that issue is. If it's a slight increase in amps, and if the engineers say it's insignificant, then it wouldn't be enough. They're reviewing it because they're interested in getting a system that's going to serve you well. It only serves our best interest to get you a system that's going to operate well too, because it's our reputation, their reputation. We don't want callbacks. We want it to work. Another reason why we look through these and see that they're equal. There's no guarantee that Mitsubishi is going to work flawlessly either, but I know it's a preferred installation.
One of the other concerns that was raised was just, again, it goes back to Bob, I think, Mitsubishi had an ease of maintenance, for changing out filters, et cetera. I assume that, that's hard to quantify, other than it's
Well,
gonna
there's different styles, and I know that ceiling height above the ceiling tiles is pretty short, so trying to do the maintenance above that would be problematic, and, with the Mitsubishi, it wasn't even an issue. As well as the piping was the other issue that was,
If you want to see the comments that we gave, here's the comments. Here's the.
no, I saw them.
You saw? So they've got their homework to do. It's whether they can come back and meet it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get to the rejection point.
You know.
Where is that rejection?
I know, as I said, we're impartial as far as that's the specified product, you need to meet or exceed. But we can't start splitting hairs and say that's the reason for rejection. We have to open competition from equal manufacturers. I mean, LG, they have their own way of doing it. Carrier has their way of doing it. Just, all these are reputable manufacturers.
Okay.
Okay. Next meeting.
Can we talk about another issue, couple other questions? I know, Matt, you were gonna bring it up about the stormwater. When you guys did the civil drawings, do you realize that every site in that subdivision was designed for 80% impervious? So, and you've added more drainage there, and we're wondering why there's more drainage and the detention area. I mean, all those things were designed for 80, that we're gonna pipe all of that off to the communal system that's in the subdivision.
Yeah.
And each one is engineered for that 80% lot coverage, so.
The question is, why did we add more?
Yeah, could you
Drainage.
look into that? Because if we can get rid of some of that would be helpful.
Yeah, if you could shoot me an email with just that question. I do have a civil engineer, GGD, that did the calculations on storm water. And they're familiar with the subdivision, they're familiar with the underground that we have on site.
Because it doesn't seem like it's a large impervious area of parking area that you're going to be taking that stormwater in from the roof as well, but just seems like ample opportunity to get rid of, all of it.
It's a good question for the engineers.
I'll show you an email.
Yeah, we do have a civil engineer that did that.
Did they take soil samples or perk samples to see how it would?
There was soil information, we did have the drawings, the permit set from the Gomes Landscaping set.
Okay.
And that did have boring information on that set.
Right.
So they had that information. They didn't take any additional borings, but we used the information that was on the Gomes Landscaping set.
That's it?
That's all I've got right now.
All right.
Well, I have one minor, very quick thing, just so the status update on we're still trying to resolve we struck a deal a long time ago for the septic, but we're trying to, there's a legal, trying to get that deal recorded. We have to, the lawyers are looking at the association so we've struck a deal with the partner.
Right.
There's basically covenants in the subdivision, and we have to figure, there's supposed to be trustees in place, and the tenants that are there are having trouble getting us the trustee documents. So, once we get that, we'll have that, we'll get that purchase and sale and all that other stuff done.
Do we need to authorize whomever to go forward and hire this employee, or can that be done? Do you need a vote to do that, or is that just something you can go and do?
It would make us feel more comfortable, probably, if there was a vote. That'd be, if we really support it, we should vote it. I'd make a motion that we hire an employee, a temporary employee,
Up to two, I would say. One
hydraulic
laborer and one
Machine operator.
machine operator and one laborer on a temporary basis.
I will second. And I have a question, though.
Yes.
We have cleared all of the considerations around any union or legal considerations associated with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You have authorization.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sirs. And ma'am.
All right, next meeting, I think 14 days is what, Halloween?
That's appropriate.
That doesn't bother
See,
me.
as Jack took my candy, you'd be okay.
What date are you proposing?
The 31st is the site meeting.
Right?
Is we back in Rhode Island for Halloween?
Oh, Halloween's fine. Halloween doesn't matter.
It's Fine by me.
Fine by me.
You bringing candy?
For Jack,
Thanks, somebody have candy.
for Jack.
For Jack, yeah. All right, make it the
Four.
31st,
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
And site meeting at 2 o'clock, same day, right?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
All right.
I will try to be there.
Thanks, guys.
Me too.
Drink and eat.
Drink at 8, I was there last night, so.
I'll be there tonight. 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
We got the little guys, they can't.
You got the little guys?
Yeah, well, the mites.
I got the midgets tonight.
See
you later, Mike.
It's a great group of kids and great group.
Top of the night to you, chief.
Amendment?
All right.
That was late.
Start working on that.